Hey everyone, welcome to part 99 of my ongoing Unsolved Mysteries series where we discuss crime, mysterious disappearances, myths and legends, the paranormal, internet mysteries, and more. The Phoenix freeway shootings, sometimes referred to as the I-10 shootings, rattled Arizona's largest city in late summer 2015. Between August 29th and September 10th of that year, a string of frightening incidents occurred on Interstate 10, one of Phoenix's main arteries. Drivers reported bullets striking their vehicles, shattering windows and endangering lives. The Arizona Department of Public Safety, better known as the DPS, took immediate notice of the attacks and launched a manhunt. The FBI and the ATF also joined forces with the DPS to analyze bullet fragments and potential ballistic matches. Early in the investigation, officials confirmed that numerous shootings had similar characteristics. Though the exact count varied as more incidents were reported and ruled out, at least 11 separate cases were closely examined. Some vehicles were hit by bullets, others were struck by projectiles that might have been pellets or even debris. This led to widespread speculation. Was there a single shooter, or were copycats capitalizing on the chaos? The confusion intensified when investigators noted that not all incidents were definitively linked to the same weapon or suspect. On September 18, 2015, authorities announced a major breakthrough: the arrest of a 21-year-old landscaper. Also, for reasons which will become apparent shortly, I'm not going to give his name here or show his picture. Investigators claimed that ballistic testing matched his weapon to 4 of the shootings, stating that the weapon could not have been involved in the others. The DPS chief said they were confident in the match, though details were initially sparse. His arrest was a moment of relief for many in Phoenix, and local media proclaimed the shooter to be definitively caught. However, the sense of resolution would be short-lived. The alleged shooter maintained his innocence from the start, claiming that his weapon had been in a pawn shop during most of the shootings. His lawyer presented receipts to show that the weapon was inaccessible to him at the time of several incidents. Further subsequent ballistic testing raised serious doubts about whether the weapon was indeed used at all. By April 2016, prosecutors dropped all charges against him. The forensic evidence was simply inconclusive, and the state couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt the elements of the offense. As the case against him quickly unraveled, the once publicly identified suspect was free to go. The dropping of charges against this man created a significant vacuum. If he wasn't the freeway shooter, who was? Well, that's where the mystery arises, because as of now, there's no definitive answer. The DPS continued to investigate, but no alternative suspect was ever conclusively identified or charged in connection with the events. Further, it's worth noting that some of the reported shootings might have been the result of road debris getting swept up into mass hysteria. Notably, the falsely accused suspect ended up filing a lawsuit, and after a trial and appeals all the way up to the Court of Appeal, he was awarded $1 million in 2021. Between 1972 and 1973, New York City was terrorized by a series of brutal attacks targeting young boys of Black and Puerto Rican descent. And yeah, just a quick programming note, I'm going to have to censor myself a bit for this section. The chop-off portion of this serial predator's name refers to exactly the worst thing you can think of. The first known victim was 8-year-old Douglas Owens, whose lifeless body was discovered on March 9, 1972, atop a Harlem rooftop. He had been stabbed 38 times, and his body was subject to extreme desecration. This horrific act was soon followed by another attack on April 20, 1972, when a 10-year-old boy was lured away, stabbed multiple times, and subjected to the same disturbing defilement. Miraculously, he survived and provided the police with a description of his attacker: a slender man with medium dark skin, possibly walking with a limp and having a mole on his left cheek. Despite this eyewitness account, the perpetrator eluded capture. On October 23, 1972, 9-year-old Wendell Hubbard was found on the roof of his East Harlem apartment building. He had been stabbed 17 times, and again his body was subject to desecration. The pattern of these crimes instilled fear throughout the community, as parents grappled with the horrifying reality that a predator was targeting their children. The terror continued into the following year, and on March 6, 1973, 9-year-old Luis Ortiz disappeared while running an errand to a local store. His body was later found in a basement stairwell. He had been stabbed 38 times. The final known victim was 8-year-old Stephen Cropper, whose body was discovered on August 17, 1973, on a Lower East Side rooftop. Unlike the previous victims, Cropper had been slashed with a razor, and there had been no additional defilement. This deviation in the killer's modus operandi puzzled investigators, but was ultimately linked to the same perpetrator due to the similarities in victim profile and location. Also, you'll want to keep the differences in mind, because this is going to become a major factor in whether this mystery is properly unsolved or not. The community's outrage and fear reached a boiling point, leading to public protests and demands for increased police protection. Some members of the community questioned whether adequate resources were being allocated to the investigation. In May 1974, a potential breakthrough occurred when 33-year-old Erno Soto was arrested after attempting to abduct a young boy. Soto, an unemployed former substance addict with a history of mental illness, confessed to the slaying of Stephen Cropper. However, inconsistencies in his statements and his mental instability complicated the case. Notably, officials from Manhattan State Hospital indicated that Soto had been in their custody at the time of some of the slayings. However, it was later revealed that he may have been out on day passes or overnight passes during some or all of the events. Despite the confession, the lack of concrete evidence in Soto's mental condition prevented a definitive conclusion. In December 1976, he was deemed unfit for trial and was recommitted to a mental institution. The slayings ceased following his arrest, leading some investigators to believe he was indeed the perpetrator. However, due to the absence of a trial and conviction, the case remains officially unsolved. Notably, it seems as though investigators were sure that Soto was the perpetrator and simply stopped investigating the crimes. This could have been the perfect opportunity for the actual perpetrator to cease committing said offenses. Also, as you will recall, Soto only confessed to the slaying of Stephen Cropper, whose slaying was missing many of the elements of the other attacks. Nahuelito is a legendary creature purported to inhabit Nahuel Huapi Lake in Patagonia, Argentina. Often compared to Scotland's Loch Ness Monster, Nahuelito has been described as a large, serpentine being, sometimes resembling a plesiosaur. The origins of the Nahuelito legend trace back to the indigenous Mapuche people, who inhabited the region long before European colonization. The Mapuche spoke of El Cuero, a monstrous aquatic creature lurking in the depths of Nahuel Huapi Lake. Described as a giant stingray-like being with a sucker-like mouth, El Cuero was feared for its alleged propensity to drag unsuspecting victims into the water. These early tales laid the foundation for the Nahuelito legend that would later emerge. In the early 20th century, reports of a mysterious creature in Nahuel Huapi Lake began to surface, attracting significant attention. In 1910, George Garrett, a manager of a company operating near the lake, reported seeing a creature approximately 400 meters away. He described the visible part of the animal as being between 5 and 7 meters long, protruding about 2 meters above the water. Garrett's account, however, wasn't made public until 1922, when he shared his experience with the Toronto Globe newspaper. This revelation spurred further interest and led to organized expeditions in search of the elusive creature. One notable expedition was led by the director of the Buenos Aires Zoo. In 1922, after receiving reports of a possible strange creature inhabiting Patagonian lakes, the director organized a search for this South American Nessie. Despite the efforts, and verifying the expectations of the numerous skeptics, the expedition failed to produce conclusive evidence of the creature's existence. The small lake where the presence of the creature was claimed is known today as Laguna del Plesiosaurio. I'll let you figure out what that means in English. The legend of Nahuelito persisted throughout the 20th century, with sporadic reports and alleged sightings. In 1960, the Argentine Navy reportedly engaged in an 18-day pursuit of an unidentified underwater object in Nahuel Huapi Lake. Although the object was never identified, some speculated that it might have been Nahuelito. In 1988, photographs purportedly depicting Nahuelito were published in what I've seen reported as either a magazine or a newspaper. Also, for anyone just listening to this video, you may want to take a brief moment to look at this most famous photograph of the creature. I mean, it's your standard lake monster picture, but you still may want to look at it since it's the most iconic photograph of Nahuelito. The anonymous sender claimed that the images showed the creature's hump-like form emerging from the water. The sender also included a note indicating that the photograph definitely didn't depict a log. Personally, I enjoy when cryptid photographs have explanations that the photographs are indeed not a hoax. Really enhances the credibility. Despite the intrigue, the authenticity of these photographs remains unverified. Various theories have been proposed to explain the Nahuelito phenomenon. Some suggest that the creature is a surviving plesiosaur, a notion popularized by its physical description. However, this theory faces significant scientific challenges, particularly regarding the geological history of the region's lakes, which formed long after plesiosaurs became extinct. Another hypothesis posits that Nahuelito is the result of mutations caused by nuclear experiments conducted on Huemul Island during the 1950s. These experiments aimed to develop nuclear fusion technology, and some speculate that they may have led to the creation of a mutant creature inhabiting the lake. And yes, for anyone out there wondering, this is my preferred theory on the creature. It's definitely a nuclear Nessie. Skeptics argue that sightings of Nahuelito can be attributed to misidentifications of natural phenomena such as floating logs, large fish, or optical illusions. Despite the absence of scientific validation, Nahuelito has become an integral part of local folklore and identity in the region. Much like other cryptids, the creature features prominently in local festivals, merchandise, and tourism, symbolizing the enduring allure of the unknown. Psychic vampires, often referred to as energy vampires, are individuals who drain the emotional or psychic energy of others, leaving their victims feeling exhausted or depleted. Unlike the mythical blood-sucking vampires of folklore, psychic vampires feed on the life force or emotional energy of their targets. This concept has roots in various cultural beliefs and has been explored in both occult practices and psychological studies. The idea of energy vampirism dates back to ancient civilizations. In Eastern mysticism, concepts like ki in Chinese philosophy or prana in Hindu traditions refer to the vital life force present in all living beings. Occult practitioners believe that psychic vampires have the ability to absorb this life force from others. In Western esoteric traditions, such as Hermeticism and Theosophy, discussions about astral energies and the manipulation thereof often include references to these beings. Psychic vampires typically exhibit behaviors that enable them to siphon energy from others. They may be highly self-centered, lacking empathy, and often engage in manipulative tactics to elicit emotional responses. Common traits include constant complaining, playing the victim, or creating unnecessary drama to draw attention and energy toward themselves. These individuals may not always be conscious of their actions, but the impact on their victims is palpable, often resulting in feelings of fatigue, irritability, or emotional distress. Psychic vampires can be categorized based on their methods and intentions. Intentional psychic vampires are individuals who are aware of their actions and deliberately seek to drain others' energy for personal gain or satisfaction. They may employ specific techniques to tap into others' life force, often under the guise of seeking help or support. Unintentional psychic vampires are people who are typically unaware of their draining behavior. They might be dealing with personal issues, leading them to unconsciously draw energy from those around them. Their neediness and constant demands can leave others feeling exhausted and depleted through no intentional fault of their own. Further, in certain situations, individuals who are not typically energy drainers may become psychic vampires. High-stress environments or personal crises can cause someone to temporarily exhibit energy-draining behaviors. Notably, unlike most other occult topics discussed in this Iceberg series, psychic vampirism is likely something that's been experienced by everyone at some point in their lives. Everyone has had that experience of encountering a person who, for whatever reason, just has the ability to completely drain them. That said, the concept is also quite controversial, as it allows people to dismiss those who are in legitimate need of emotional assistance as quote-unquote vampires. This could have the effect of causing people to bottle in their emotions, which could lead to a whole host of other problems. Quick shout out to all my YouTube members and patrons. Don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends. And now for an update on a fairly well-known Jane Doe case, which was solved just this month. On July 11th, 1978, a New Mexico Highway Department foreman discovered the body of a young woman near just outside Santa Rosa, New Mexico. The victim had been shot twice in the back of the head with a .22 caliber weapon, and shell casings were found nearby. Despite investigative efforts, she remained unidentified for decades, becoming known as the Guadalupe County Jane Doe. The victim was a white female, estimated to be between 17 and 25 years old. She stood approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighed around 145 pounds. She had strawberry blonde hair, blue eyes, and multiple ear piercings, 3 in the left ear and 2 in the right. Her attire included blue denim cutoff shorts, a white and navy vest or halter top, brown moccasins, and Native American-style jewelry. Dental examinations revealed she had received dental care, with 4 fillings and only 1 wisdom tooth present. The investigation into her death led authorities to Ronald Lanphier and Diana Geisinger, a couple involved in a series of crimes during that period. Lanphier had escaped from a South Dakota prison in early July 1978 and reunited with Geisinger in Sioux City, Iowa. The pair planned to travel to Las Vegas to marry and then settle in Texas. During their journey, they committed several violent crimes, including robbery and murder. According to Geisinger's later testimony, they encountered the young woman at a motel in Perry, Oklahoma, on the night of July 9th or 10th, 1978. She was carrying a guitar and mentioned she was hitchhiking to California to visit her mother. She also noted that July 11th was her 17th birthday. The trio spent time together, stopping for coffee and visiting a bar. On July 11th, the young woman asked to stop at a payphone to call her mother for her birthday. As she exited the vehicle along the highway, Lanphier shot her twice in the back of the head. They then robbed her, taking her guitar, a coin purse containing $1.50, and her birth certificate before disposing of her body near the highway. After the slaying, Lanphier and Geisinger continued their crime spree, traveling to Nevada and California before their eventual arrest in October 1978. Geisinger became the prosecution's key witness, leading to Lanphier's conviction and death sentence. Despite the arrest and conviction of her killers, the identity of the Guadalupe County Jane Doe remained unknown for many years. In 2019, her remains were sent to the University of North Texas for DNA analysis in hopes of identifying her. In December 2024, it was announced that she had been successfully identified. However, per her family's wishes, her name has not been publicly disclosed. Also, let me know in the comments if you want to hear updates on resolutions to cases as I go forward into this series. I have a feeling most people like hearing resolutions to long-standing mysteries, and I do as well, so honestly, I'm probably doing it regardless. Also, one quick programming note on this case. It's virtually impossible to find any information on Lanphier and Geisinger, despite the fact that they eliminated 3 innocent people on a deranged cross-country road trip. Aside from court records and a post on r/RBI about the former Jane Doe, there's just nothing out there. Feng Shui is an ancient Chinese practice focused on harmonizing individuals with their surrounding environment through the strategic arrangement of spaces, objects, and structures. Also known as Chinese geomancy, it's rooted in the belief that the natural world is filled with vital energy known as qi. This energy can be optimized or disrupted depending on how one's surroundings are composed. Although it's frequently discussed today in terms of interior design and real estate, Feng Shui's origins and historical significance stretch back thousands of years. The early beginnings of Feng Shui can be traced to roughly 6,000 years ago, when people were first starting to align human settlements and grave sites with the natural landscape. By the time of the Zhou dynasty starting in the 11th century BC, Chinese thinkers had begun to develop more explicit guidelines for positioning homes, temples, and tombs. These alignments were made in ways that aligned with cosmological concepts like the flow of qi and the balance of yin and yang. These guidelines weren't purely aesthetic. They were designed to maintain harmony between heaven, earth, and humanity, which was a central tenet in Chinese thought. For instance, grave sites were carefully chosen to ensure that ancestors rested in areas believed to be charged with auspicious energy, which would, in turn, benefit their living descendants. By the Tang dynasty, running from the 7th to 10th centuries AD, Feng Shui masters had gained considerable influence in imperial courts. Royal palaces, government buildings, and entire city layouts began incorporating Feng Shui principles to ensure stability, prosperity, and harmony. During subsequent dynasties, the popularity of Feng Shui spread widely, influencing not only official construction projects and the elites, but also the environments of common people. In these periods, a more standardized body of knowledge emerged, with Feng Shui texts, manuals, and lineage-based traditions passed down through families of masters. Throughout its long history, Feng Shui has been influenced by various philosophical and religious currents. Confucianism emphasized social harmony and the importance of honoring ancestors, which resonated with Feng Shui's focus on selecting burial sites that would benefit future generations. Taoism, with its belief in the fundamental balance and flow of the universe, complemented Feng Shui's emphasis on qi and the natural order. Buddhism also interacted with Feng Shui practices. Over the centuries, Buddhist temples and monasteries incorporated Feng Shui principles to ensure spiritual well-being and tranquility. After China began to open up to the world in the 1980s and 1990s, traditional cultural practices, including Feng Shui, underwent a resurgence. Architects, interior designers, and real estate professionals worldwide have embraced certain feng shui principles, often in a secularized or watered down form. In Hong Kong, for example, feng shui masters are often consulted before constructing skyscrapers, and the city's skyline is said to reflect these principles. The global popularity of feng shui in the late 20th and early 21st centuries can also be attributed to the broader Western interest in holistic practices, alternative medicine, and spirituality. On February 15, 1997, the body of an unidentified woman, later referred to as the Monadnock River Jane Doe, was discovered in the Monadnock River in Braintree, Massachusetts. A man canoeing in the river found her remains just a few hundred yards from the Braintree police station. The woman was an Asian female, estimated to be between 25 and 35 years old, standing approximately 4 feet 11 inches to 5 feet tall, and weighing between 85 to 90 pounds. She had short black hair, about half an inch in length, and distinctive dark eyes. Compounding the tragedy, she was 8 to 10 weeks pregnant at the time of her death. At the time of her discovery, she was clothed in a gray striped shirt, a rust-colored ski jacket, black stretch pants labeled with the name Maria Marin, and white sneakers sized 5.5. The presence of the name tag led investigators to explore the possibility that Maria could be a clue to her identity, or perhaps the previous owner of the clothing. An autopsy was conducted and determined that the cause of death was drowning, with no immediate signs of foul play. This led authorities to consider the possibility of an accidental drowning. However, the circumstances surrounding her death remained unclear. Fingerprints were taken and compared against national databases, but no matches were found, leaving her identity a mystery. Over the years, the case of the Monadnock River Jane Doe has remained unsolved. Despite efforts by law enforcement and public appeals for information, her identity and the events leading to her death have not been uncovered. I suspect that, like many recently solved Jane and John Doe cases, this one will be resolved through genetic genealogy, if it's ever resolved at all. I don't believe this Jane Doe's death was an accidental drowning, largely due to her pregnancy, but due to other factors as well. At 8 to 10 weeks pregnant, she may have been in a vulnerable emotional or physical state, potentially making her a target for foul play. Pregnant women often experience significant stress or interpersonal conflict, which could lead to dangerous situations. My suspicion, given that she was 8 to 10 weeks pregnant, is that she may have told the father of the child about the pregnancy. He perhaps suggested a termination, and when she wasn't agreeable to this, she may have been eliminated. This, of course, is just speculation on my part based on the evidence, but the circumstantial evidence is strong. Additionally, the fact that she was fully clothed in a ski jacket and stretch pants suggests she wasn't prepared to enter the water, either for recreation or by accident. Her discovery near a public area also raises questions about how she ended up in the river without anyone noticing. While drowning was the official cause of death, the circumstances surrounding her case warrant deeper scrutiny beyond mere accident.